Coming up today, President Park Geun-hye holds summit talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping as Seoul looks to ease bilateral tensions over the planned deployment of the THAAD missile defense system. The leader of South Korea's ruling party lays out his party's policy goals with a focus on revitalizing the sluggish economy and maintaining rigid national security against North Korea's threats. Plus, Hanjin Shipping has reportedly filed for bankruptcy protection in the United States as it looks to protect its assets as it undergoes restructuring here in Korea. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 5th of September. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start, shall we, with the highly anticipated summit between the leaders of South Korea and China. President Park Geun-hye and her Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping held their one-on-one talks this morning in Hangzhou, the host city for the ongoing G20 summit. The outcome of their discussions on THAAD and its upcoming arrival in South Korea is what many had been waiting for. We are going to connect to our correspondent Song Ji-sun, who is travelling with President Park. Ji-sun, the meeting is over. What do we know so far?
Good afternoon, Mark. The two leaders sat down for 46 minutes this morning, exceeding their prearranged 30-minute time slot by more than a quarter of an hour. The talks got off to an amicable start, with President Park and Xi talking about Korea's independence movement, which blossomed in the region in the 1930s. Citing a number of challenges on the economic and security fronts facing the two countries and the world, President Park said they cannot be tackled by one country on its own, but that collaboration must take place across borders. She also expressed South Korea's strong desire to strengthen bilateral relations through communication, highlighting North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, which have been a stumbling block to Seoul-Beijing relations. President Park is likely to have asked China to do more to press its close ally North Korea and for its understanding in regards to Seoul and Washington's decision to deploy the U.S. missile defense system THAAD in South Korea. Now, Seoul and Washington say THAAD will help protect the South from Pyongyang's growing nuclear and missile threats, but China has been highly vocal in its opposition, citing its own security concerns. Noting the rising uncertainties on the Korean peninsula and throughout the region, President Xi said South Korea-China relations should develop on the right path in a stable and sound manner, while stressing the need to appreciate their common interests and political cooperation. China has on numerous occasions called for a nuclear-free Korean peninsula, but President Xi reiterated Beijing's anger over THAAD during his talks on Saturday with U.S. President Barack Obama and again at this morning's talks with President Park, according to Chinese state-run news agency Xinhua. President Xi reportedly said that mishandling the issue is not conducive to strategic stability in the region and could intensify disputes. We will have more details once President Park's diplomatic secretary holds a press conference shortly. Mark?
And, well, we do look forward to hearing what the Secretary has to say on the talks and their discussions on THAAD in particular. It's such a thorny issue, of course. These talks are taking place on the sidelines of the G20 summit. What's left on the agenda there? More sessions on the global economy?
Right now, taking you back to the main event, all the leaders are now back at the G20 summit, and the second session is now underway on the second and final day. And President Park is set to speak at sessions 3 and 5. She is going to urge global leaders for action for open and free trade to tackle growing international protectionism. Following a reception, a working lunch, and the closing ceremony, the G20 will adopt the Hangzhou communique aimed at building an innovative, invigorated, interconnected, and inclusive world economy. I'll be back with the latest in our later newscast. Back to you in Seoul.
Well, thank you very much, Ji-sun, for your comprehensive report there. That was our Presidential Office correspondent, Song Ji-sun, reporting live from the host city of the G20 summit in Hangzhou. Now, In related news, really, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is also set to hold talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping later on this Monday. Japan's Kyodo News Agency says the talks will follow the official conclusion of the two-day G20 summit in China. The discussions will most likely centre on the territorial dispute surrounding the Japan-controlled Senkaku, China-claimed Diaoyu Islands in the East China Sea. This is going to be their first one-on-one meeting since April 2015. Relations between Tokyo and Beijing have been tense as around a dozen Chinese Coast Guard and government ships have sailed near those islands over the last month. Now, US President Barack Obama's arrival in China for the G20 summit got off to a bumpy start as he didn't receive the red carpet treatment usually offered to world leaders. Our Oh Si-young has more.
Was it a carefully calculated snub or a simple mishap on the behalf of the Chinese? As President Obama arrived in the eastern Chinese city of Hangzhou on Saturday, no rolling staircase had been prepared for his exit from Air Force One. Instead, he had to make his way out from a little-used exit. There are also altercations between US and Chinese officials as Obama got off the plane and US reporters were told to move. A Chinese official was heard shouting, "This is our country, this is our airport." President Obama later downplayed the situation.
It can cause some friction. It's not the first time it's happened. It doesn't just happen in China, it happens in other countries where we travel.
Chinese authorities laid out the red carpet for other world leaders, such as South Korean President Park Geun-hye, British Prime Minister Theresa May, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. This sparked speculation that the lukewarm reception was a calculated move on Beijing's part, reflecting tensions between the two superpowers. Obama later met with Chinese President Xi Jinping for 4 hours on the sidelines of the G20 summit. Officials say they discussed sensitive topics such as the territorial disputes in the South China Sea and the upcoming deployment of the THAAD missile defense system to South Korea. Both sides didn't back down from their positions on the issues. Oh Si-young, Arirang News.
Now, in the rest of the day's news, the leader of Korea's ruling Saenuri Party has laid out his party's policy goals, vowing to spearhead long overdue political reforms. Giving his first speech to the National Assembly as party leader on Monday morning, Lee Jung-hyun stressed the need for lawmakers to yield their privileges. He suggested creating a task force this month to revamp the way parliamentary politics are conducted to ensure lawmakers truly focus on serving the people rather than themselves or their party. He also urged cooperation from opposition parties on the passage of several pending economy-related bills, including a labour reform bill, as well as on security issues like the planned deployment to South Korea of the THAAD missile defence system. The main opposition Minju Party's leader, Choo Mi-ae, will deliver her address on Tuesday. Park Ji-won, interim leader of the minor opposition People's Party, he is going to take the podium on Wednesday. Now, the President's new Minister for Culture, Sports and Tourism, Cho Yun-seon, reported to work at the ministry in Sejong City on Monday, her first day on the job. Minister Cho started the day with a visit to the Seoul National Cemetery as her first official schedule to pay her respects to those who sacrificed their lives for the country. She then headed to the National Assembly to attend Saenuri Party leader Lee Jung-hyun's policy speech to mark the opening of the National Assembly's new session. Minister Cho, who was President Park's former Secretary for Political Affairs and a former Minister of Gender Equality, was officially appointed to her new position on Sunday. Korea's largest shipping company, Hanjin Shipping, has applied for bankruptcy protection in the United States. This comes as the Korean government launched a special task force to deal with the possible impact on the country's maritime sector. Kim Jung-soo has more.
Hanjin Shipping has reportedly filed for bankruptcy protection in the U.S. at a court in Newark, New Jersey. The Wall Street Journal says the application was filed last Friday, just 2 days after the company applied for protection in Korean courts. The filing will prevent creditors from seizing Hanjin's U.S. assets and block them from launching further legal action, while the company undergoes restructuring in Korea. The report says the U.S. bankruptcy filing was made by Seok Tae-soo, Hanjin's inside director and foreign representative. The company currently operates over 60 regular lines worldwide with a fleet of 140 container or bulk vessels. The Wall Street Journal says Hanjin's bankruptcy will be regarded as, quote, the largest container shipping failure in history, dwarfing all previous carrier bankruptcies. Meanwhile, the Korean government set up a special task force on Sunday to cope with potential disruptions in maritime trade and the economy as a whole caused by Hanjin's recent difficulties. According to the Financial Services Commission, Hanjin Shipping currently owes over 64 billion won, or $58 million to a combined 457 contracted companies. Hanjin's possible delays in transport and satisfying its financial obligations could create problems for their operations as well. The government task force will also instruct Hanjin Shipping to apply for prohibition of seizure orders in 43 countries to further minimize the risk of creditors taking Hanjin's vessels. It will also deploy teams to Korea's 5 major ports in Busan, Ulsan, Tongyeong, Changwon, and Mokpo to quickly identify and respond to problems arising in the shipping sector. Kim Jung-soo, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's, that is, foreign exchange reserves hit a record high in August on the back of increased gains from investment in foreign assets and an increase in the value of non-dollar currencies. The Bank of Korea says the country's reserves came to $375.46 billion last month, up around $4.1 billion from the previous month. Foreign reserves held in overseas securities increased by roughly $8 billion from the previous month, while overseas deposits added $3.9 billion over the cited period. As of the end of July, South Korea remained the world's 7th largest holder of foreign exchange reserves. It has emerged that tens of thousands of North Koreans gathered in Pyongyang last week to welcome scientists and engineers who played a part in the regime's most recent missile test. Watchers say the move is designed to bolster public support for its leadership. Kim Mo-kyun reports.
Around 100,000 North Koreans were mobilized to mark the regime's successful test firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile in August. The North state-run daily Rodong Sinmun reported Sunday that a large-scale welcoming ceremony was held in Pyongyang last Friday to acknowledge those who contributed to the launch. North Koreans lined the streets waving flowers as the visitors waved back from their vehicles. Prior to the ceremony, the newspaper said the scientists and engineers stayed in Pyongyang for 6 days, touring around the country and attending celebratory events. Leader Kim Jong-un also took photos with those who played key roles in the SLBM launch. The missile launched from North Korea's coastal city of Sinpo in late August was widely considered a success. Experts say North Korea has been using such accomplishments to build up its public support amid tightened international sanctions. Thousands of North Koreans were also mobilized to congratulate those who carried out the regime's 4th nuclear test in January and its long-range missile test in February. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
Now, the U.S. State Department is demanding North Korea allow independent inspections of the regime's political prison camps for a better understanding of the human rights abuses taking place within them. The US-based Voice of America reported Monday that State Department spokeswoman Katina Adams said conditions at the prison camps are life-threatening, especially for children and pregnant women. She added that women are exposed to sexual violence and forced abortions, calling for independent research institutes such as the International Committee of the Red Cross to look into the conditions inside the camps. Experts estimate some 120,000 prisoners in North Korea are regularly subject to torture and sexual violence. The race to the White House is heating up as the final run-in begins, and the latest poll showed Donald Trump is quickly catching up to Hillary Clinton, even taking the lead in some polls. A new national poll from the Morning Consult shows Trump trailing Clinton by just 2 percentage points, 42% to 40%. Watchers say the Clinton campaign is aiming to run out the clock. The scandals linked to the Clinton Foundation and her emails refuse to go away. According to The Hill, Clinton, quote, nearly vanished from the campaign trail last month to attend private fundraisers and to prepare for the first presidential debate on September 26th. Clinton also hasn't given a press conference in more than 270 days now. While Trump held a rally in Washington, flew to Mexico for a meeting with the president and jetted back to Arizona for a speech on his immigration policy, Clinton delivered a speech in Cincinnati, which passed off with little media notice. The Vatican has made Mother Teresa a saint in the Catholic Church. It can take up to decades or even centuries to reach sainthood, but Mother Teresa's comes just 19 years after her death. Kim Min-ji has the details.
Mother Teresa, who devoted her life to the sick, poor and abandoned, has been declared a saint. The canonization mass of the nun known as the Saint of the Gutters was led by Pope Francis before hundreds of thousands of people in Vatican City on Sunday. The Pope said Mother Teresa spent her life bowing down before those who were spent, left to die on the side of the road, seeing in them their God-given dignity.
May she be your model of holiness. I think that we will find it difficult calling her Saint Teresa. Her sainthood is very close to us. It is so tender that spontaneously we will continue to say Mother Teresa.
Two miraculous cures after Mother Teresa's death in 1997 were attributed to her canonization, one which involved the healing of a woman with stomach cancer and another of a man who suffered from brain tumors. It often takes decades to reach sainthood, but devotees of Mother Teresa had pushed the Vatican to speed up the process, saying her holiness was clear to many worldwide.
I think they had to make her a saint. She was a woman who gave a lot to people and the entire world. She was an example to all. She deserved this.
Mother Teresa of Calcutta is a Christian figure of affection, simplicity and love. She reached out to people, particularly the poor. These are the features of a real saint.
But Mother Teresa was not above criticism. Her critics said she did nothing to alleviate the causes of poverty or heal the pain of the terminally ill, while she accepted financial aid from dictators for her charity work. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And that is where we're going to leave it on this Monday afternoon here in Seoul. Have a great rest of the day. Goodbye.